more time on this mysterious island, and some shocking and sinister revelations. Let's talk about The Changeling Season 1, Episode 5. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about The Changeling Season 1, Episode 5, This Woman's Work, which comes to Apple TV Plus on September 22nd, 2023. This episode follows Apollo as he spends some time on this mysterious island in the East River and learned more about kind of what goes on here and maybe what was going through Emma's head when that horrible incident actually happened. My hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. Look, I like this series a lot. This is just a wonderful episode that perfectly balances this kind of like motif that has been going throughout the Changeling series. Is like balance between light and dark, between like sinister and beautiful. Just it feels like every time there is like a horrible moment, there is also an equally lovely moment, and this episode does that perfectly, and also further advances this story and gives us some new revelations on some very key characters. So I definitely think you should watch it. If you haven't started watching The Changeling, this is episode 5. There are 8 episodes total, so make sure to catch up this week, and you can be ready for episode 6 next week. So I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't want to know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off when I get to the recap section. Before that, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. In The Changeling Season 1, Episode 5, you have Apollo kind of learning more about this mysterious island and this kind of female society that lives on there. He learns more about like why they're there, some of their like day-to-day life, and we also get some further revelations on Emma and her time in Brazil and how all that might tie together to what happened to Apollo, Emma, and Brian that fateful night. So things I liked about this episode. The first, I'm just going to call it so sinister. There are some really dark scenes in this episode, and I loved it. There are some very, very sinister moments, some very kind of like unsettling things that happen, and some really, really good plot twists as we learn more and more about these characters and maybe some of the truth and lies that they have told. The second thing I love the balance. I mentioned it in like the main thing I like. I love how this balances light and dark, how it balances like sinister and beautiful. There is just every time there's a moment that you're like, oh gosh, like that is terrible, there is an equally like touching moment that kind of balances out, and this series does a really good job with that, and this episode is no different. There are definitely some moments when you just kind of like sit and appreciate the beauty in this episode, and you haven't had that as much recently, so it was nice to have that in this one. And the third thing I love the music. There is some really beautiful music. It kind of fits with that like beauty and sinister motif. There in some of the really nice scenes, there is some lovely music, some beautiful piano music that plays that kind of really lightens your mood and really helps to contribute to just like how those scenes touch you. And that is also helped by the fourth thing I like. I love the lighting. This series uses really great lighting, and this is no different. This episode, there are some really nice brightly lit moments, some really beautiful outdoor scenes that emphasize the sunshine, emphasize again the beauty that can happen in this crazy, horrible world that the Changeling takes place in. And so I really love that. And then those are just equally balanced out by some dark scenes, some depressing scenes. It does a really good job of kind of contrasting those, of having beautiful nature with like dark, oppressive, overwhelming city, things like that. It is just a really, really wonderful use of lighting to help tell the story. So all that being said, The Changeling Season 1, Episode 5 comes to Apple TV Plus on September 22nd, 2023. Definitely check it out. And if you haven't caught up on this series yet, definitely hurry up, because you can catch up through Episode 5 this week and be ready for Season 6 next week. So I'm going to really quickly go into a recap. So if you don't want to know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So this episode kind of has 2 moments in time. You have a bunch of flashbacks about Emma's life and her time in Brazil and her time raising Brian. And then you have what's currently happening on the island. They kind of go back and forth throughout. So I will just kind of like start with the flashbacks and then progress to the island. So during the flashbacks, we see Emma's time in Brazil. We see where this picture that Emma's sister mentioned was like hanging in a prominent New York gallery of Emma naked with these just like eyes that look like a sorceress. We find out where that came from. When Emma was in Brazil, after she met that witch by the waterfall, she went exploring with this person that it seems like maybe she might have known. She hitched a ride with him on his like moped motorcycle, and they kind of explored Brazil. They explored these ruins, and when they were there, this person has this like lovely camera. He sets it up and he asks if he can take a picture for himself. And she says no. He goes to relieve himself, he goes to pee, and while this is happening, she like something comes over Emma. She sets up the camera, like this different look comes over her face. She disrobes and she takes this nude picture in these like Brazilian ruins. It is a beautiful picture, it is a powerful picture, and like her sister said, her eyes, her like demeanor are very different from the Emma that we knew at the start of her time in Brazil. So it is an interesting change. You don't really know where it comes from, but she takes this picture, I guess, presumably in secret. The photographer, this person named Leif Knudsen, doesn't know that this picture is there until he is developing it. And then when he's developing it, I guess he gets a lovely surprise. He sees this picture and it makes its way to his gallery. It has ordered a large, giant print, makes its way to his gallery. It is like hanging prominently in the window for all to see. Emma becomes a piece of art, I guess. Now, we also see some of the flashbacks of Emma's time with Brian and how she kind of found this strange group and how she first made contact with Cal. Now, she was posting on a message board called The Wise Moms, and she basically opened up like, hey, have you ever thought that maybe like your baby wasn't yours, like it was switched at birth? And from this innocuous kind of message, Cal messaged her and asked her if she was also seeing disappearing text messages, which Emma was. Brian thought she was crazy. Emma was seeing these like pictures, these disappearing text messages. You get a sense during some of the previous conversations that maybe it seems like William was kind of behind these text messages. He was able to send Brian an unknown number message. He talks about like taking pictures and observing the family and how beautiful they were. So it seems like this might have been William. You don't really get that revelation completely, but there's a strong hint that it's possibly William doing this. But Cal asks if Emma is experiencing these text messages, and Emma is, and Cal says that she's sorry, but she can help her, but only if Emma's truly brave enough to be helped. This is all via like instant messenger through this like Wise Moms forum. Now we don't know exactly what Emma has to do, but it involves those chains she got from that random message board person with her sister before Emma like went in, before the whole like incident between Emma, Brian, and Apollo happened. And we see her bring these chains into the baby's bedroom. Brian is sitting there. He looks really cute. He looks really fat. She like picks him up. It seems like she is just going to like snuggle him. She seems to kind of revert back to her original Emma from this like cold, scared, powerful Emma. She seems to revert back. She's like holding him. And that's when Brian seems to bite her and draws blood. And a lot of times you hear these like a different voice for Brian, like almost like a mischievous voice, like a laughing or like a hissing, kind of like maybe like a fairy or some sort of like changeling type thing has taken over Brian and is like being mischievous with the baby. And that might be where all of this comes from. That might be where the chains are. Like, I think in mythology, the Fae are, they are hurt by iron. They don't like iron. And maybe that's what those chains are. Maybe those chains are iron to like lock Brian or whatever mysterious creature has like taken on his form. Maybe that's to like lock him down to defeat his magic, whatever you want to say. It seems like there is more going on here, and it seems like maybe Emma wasn't actually crazy. It seems like maybe there was just a lot going on here, and she was the only person that could see what was happening. Now, before Brian bit her, she did say that she loves her baby more than anything, and that she'll give her life or her husband's life or your life when she's talking to the baby. So again, it seems like she doesn't believe that this is actually her baby, and she would sacrifice that all just to save her child. So at least Emma is convinced that this is not her baby. And it seems like from some of these hints that maybe she's right. Now, we don't know exactly what Emma did yet. I'm sure we'll find out in the next couple episodes, but we do know that she was like hearing things with Brian, that she was seeing things that Brian was doing. He was being like a little bit mischievous with he was being like a little bit mischievous with her. There were definitely some snarls that definitely sound like he snapped her. And remember, he bit her just then. He also seemed like snap at her earlier. So it seems like Brian had more going on than we expected. Now, back on the island in, I guess, present time, Apollo is given us another chance. Cal comes to him and says, like, I'll give you a second chance Cal comes in and says, like, I'll give you a second chance. And that basically means that she takes Brian and like shows him around the island. He sees their like operations, the way they're living, and Brian kind of acclimates pretty quickly. He's always been a good dad, so he starts playing with some of the kids. He reads one of them a book who like falls down. It seems like he really kind of gels with this whole place. Now, he's a little off because he's the only adult male here. Everyone else is female. Seems like they might have some male kids, but pretty much everyone who is an adult is female. So Brian's like the first male that a lot of these kids have seen in a long time. He kind of draws some attention. He draws like some eyes from the other residents, like kind of some suspicious eyes of like why he's there. But Cal's there, so no one tries anything. So as they're walking and talking, Cal hands Brian a copy of the book that his dad read him, this like dark fable, this like dark fairy tale about fairies. That the main line is like, babies are made from dreams, and dreams are the favorite meal of the fairies, or something like that. So it is this like cute fairy tale, but there is definitely a dark connotation to it. She like talks to Brian, is like, I don't know why your dad read you this book, but it is more like truthful than some of the other stuff that they're reading. So you get a sense, again, with some of the other things that you're hearing, that maybe there is like a fairy world, and maybe there's like another world, like a fae world, that exists alongside our world. And you also get that because when Cal is talking to Brian about this island, she says that like this island is in different waters, and Brian's like, what do you mean? It's just in the East River. She's like, well, it's there, but when you when you came here, you like crossed into like an entirely different world. So after their conversation, after she kind of shows him around, Apollo says that Apollo tries to talk to Cal about William, and Apollo basically says, like, you said that William killed his daughter. Well, it seems like most of these women here did something similar. And Cal's like, no, that's wrong. Like that is incorrect. Well, Apollo wants to hear from Greta that William actually did what Cal is saying that he did. Now, Cal says, Greta will be at this like puppet show tonight, and if she wants to talk to you, she can. So Apollo spends the rest of the day like playing with the kids, reading books, just kind of like being a good member of this colony. And that night at the puppet show, Cal pulls Apollo aside and introduces him to Greta. Now we finally see Greta. We finally see this person that William was obsessed over, and we learn a little bit more about William's obsession. Now, Greta says that William sent her a book, this To Kill a Mockingbird, this one that he bought from Apollo, but he defaced it. And Apollo's like, what? And she's like, he also drained my account. So it seems like the $70,000 that William used to buy the book to give to Greta was from her account. He basically like drained all of her money, left her destitute, and then gave her this book. But before he gave it to her, he defaced it. So just kind of like the ultimate FU to her. Like he took all of her money, bought this priceless book, and then ruined it and sent it to her. How did he deface it? Well, he wrote her dead child's name on every page. This is Agnes, Agnes, Agnes. And Apollo is just kind of like appalled at this because, well, this is not what William said. William defaced this like priceless book that Apollo really loved and wanted to sell to a collector. And it seems like William has a lot more going on throughout this than we originally were led on. So Apollo leaves this quickly, goes back to the cell to confront William. When he gets there, he's like, we have a lot to talk about. And William asks him to like not use that name. It's not his real name. And Apollo's like, what are you talking about? Your name is William. William says that he originally didn't know his real name either, but then he found like a place where he belonged with people that understood him. And when he was there, he like shed his William face and put on his true face. And there they gave him his true name. And William's like, and Apollo, you already know my true name. And then he goes into this like darker, sinister voice. And he says, dinner plans tonight, a meal inspired by baby Brian, boiled vegetables, which is a horrible thing that this person named Kindergarten posted on the like Brian Facebook kind of memorial page. Kindergarten's been posting a lot of stuff on there. Brian instantly recognizes this horrible quote, and William says his name is Kindergarten. And so it seems like William was, probably behind a lot of this. It seems like from the revelations, we find out that William, is this like toxic online person. He was probably the one that was sending these disappearing texts to Emma and then eventually also to Brian. But how did he get there, right? Like, he seemed so nice and so lovely. How did he be turned into this monster? Well, it seems like that answer might be related to Brazil. Now, we see the gallery that Emma's picture is hanging in. It is, prominently placed. It is visible for all. We see some people walking by the window. And while we are watching this, we see a happy, good dad, William, holding his daughter, eating some ice cream, walking down. He stops, he turns, he looks at this painting, or he stops, he turns, he looks at this picture where Emma has these like sorceress eyes and this like intense view. And we see William like look at the picture. Now, you don't get much after that, but it seems like maybe this was the kind of like tipping point. This was the trigger that caused William to then go down these rabbit holes and find this like horrible other world and do horrible things. So we don't know. That's all speculation. But my guess is that William is responsible for kind of harassing Emma, for sending those pictures, for like pushing Emma to go to Cal, and then eventually do these horrible things. Now, you don't really know why William would do this. Was it just to kind of like harass her? Was there some ulterior motive? Was he like trying to expose Brian as a fairy, if Brian is a fairy, if baby, the Brian that was there is a fairy? You don't know. We'll have to wait until next episode to find out more, hopefully. But you do get the sense that William is intimately involved with a lot of this, and that this is going to get much darker pretty quickly. So that is the Changeling Season 1, Episode 5. Is coming to Apple TV Plus on September 22nd, 2023. Definitely check it out. Definitely check out this series if you haven't. It is a very unique feel, but if that is something you're interested in, you are going to love it. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.